right. Good afternoon, everyone. I'd like to call this meeting to order. It is 6:02 p.m. I'd like to announce that this meeting is being recorded. Jonathan, can I have a roll call?
Is Director Aguilar
Here.
Director Topwood?
Here.
Dr. Craig?
Here.
Director Schulz?
Here.
Dr. Freeman?
Here.
Dr. Brandt?
Here.
Dr. Dessler is absent.
All right. Before we begin, we would like to acknowledge the Chumash people who are the traditional custodians of this land. We pay our respects to the Chumash elders, past, present, and future, who call this place Anasqueo, the land that Isla Vista sits upon, their home. We are proud to continue the tradition of coming together and growing as a community. We thank the Chumash community for their stewardship and support, and we look forward to strengthening our ties as we continue our relationship of mutual respect and understanding. Now I'd like to move the consent agenda. Do any directors wish to poll or discuss items on the consent agenda? Do I have a motion on the consent agenda?
I'll move to approve.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right. Now I'd like to open this motion to public comment. Is there any public comment on the consent agenda? All right, I see none. Motion to approve by Toplet, the second by Schulz. All directors in favor, please say aye. If you approve, aye.
Aye.
All no, please say no. All right, the motion passes 6-0-0-1. Now I'd like to move on to the public comment period. At this time, any member of the public may speak on matters within the subject matter jurisdiction of board of directors that is not on this agenda. The board will not take action on any item not on the agenda except as provided by law. Do any members of the public wish to speak?
Wait, no one on Zoom.
All right, I see no public comment here, so we'll move on to our discussion action items. We'll start with item 4.1, resolution 23-5, honoring the service of Fiona Salsic. Fiona Salsic.
All right, well, yeah, we are very excited to honor Fiona today. She's been an excellent member of the team, both Compost Collective and the Mobility Plan. She's been essential to everything we've been doing on that. So we have a resolution. I think we can just take turns if anybody wants to say something about Fiona, but I'll just say that I feel like she helped manage me even personally on the mobility plan. Like she really kept on it the most out of anybody in the team, of all the people working on it. I feel like she was the most passionate. And so we're really proud with where we're going. She was a big part of doing that for us. So thank you, Fiona.
Thank you, Jonathan.
Fiona.
Yeah, absolutely. I've had the great pleasure of working with Fiona since last March, and it's just been such a pleasure because she's really made a lasting impact in the community. When it comes to anything, she really goes in like wholeheartedly, and really just, whether it's pop-up events, surveys, data. She's still working on the data collection plan this week. Her last day is Friday. So she's been very, very committed from the get-go. We do have a resolution. I don't know if you want me to read it.
Yeah.
Okay. So a resolution of the Board of Directors of the Isla Vista Community Services District honoring the service of Fiona, I'm gonna butcher it too, Salsic, IVCSD Mobility Plan Outreach Coordinator. Whereas Fiona has served the Isla Vista Community Services District as the Mobility Plan Outreach Coordinator since March 2022. And whereas lived in Isla Vista while attending UCSB, forging an affinity for Isla Vista culture and values. And whereas worked for both the Isla Vista Compost Collective and in her position as Mobility Plan Outreach Coordinator, shining light on her dedication to serving the Isla Vista community. And whereas Fiona is always jumping in where needed to support other staff in their events and programs, such as creating a logo for the Isla Vista Beautiful program and drawing each of the murals for all the compost piles. And whereas from day one, Fiona has worked collaboratively with the many stakeholders involved in the STEP grant and is well respected for her tremendous knowledge, ability, and go-getter attitude. And whereas has been instrumental in leading the work of the Community Mobility Plan, ensuring all voices are given the opportunity to be represented in the final draft plan. And whereas she goes above and beyond when taking on a project and thinks it through strategically and wholeheartedly to ensure that nothing is missed. From outreach efforts to planning sustainable transportation pop-up events to survey and data collection, she ensures there is equitable engagement across all efforts. And whereas is always thinking outside the box and challenging the status quo for the betterment of the community. She is one of the most creative, innovative, engaging, supportive, bright, and compassionate members of the IVCSD team. Whereas Fiona's passion for making a difference in the Isla Vista community is inspiring. Now therefore be it resolved, the Board of Directors of the Isla Vista Community Services District honors and commends Fiona for 13 months of distinguished service to the Isla Vista Community Services District and wishes her good luck in her future endeavors.
Thank you so much, everyone. That was a really, really beautiful resolution. I feel like it's my birthday. I feel like people sing happy birthday. But thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Of course, we have a little something for you. For your travels, Fiona leaves for Bali this weekend, so.
Oh, thank you, Sydney. Of course. Thanks so much. Thank you.
Of course.
And thank you, Sydney and Jonathan, for being such amazing mentors. You guys really taught me what it means to be passionate about your work and what it means to just be an incredibly hard worker. And yeah, I'm really thankful to both of you guys. Thank you.
So I'll start some of the director comment as that Fiona's been a neighbor of mine for a long time. And I remember when I shared that we were hiring for a position and I saw a little bit of interest from Fiona and I thought, oh, what a great full circle that'd be to see someone who's been a part of ILS for so long get to work for the district and get to make a difference. And from there on, it was hands off. She was independently a superstar with the district. And so to see all the mobility plan and to hear your name come up so often as a big part of our success really made me proud to be your neighbor. So just thank you for being a part of the district.
Thank you, Marcos. I really appreciate that.
Yeah. If anyone else, any directors, anyone in the public wishes to say anything, please raise your hand or speak. Director Brandt.
Well, I just want to say congratulations on an excellent tenure here. It's not often that you can make such a big impact in such a short amount of time. The grand scheme of things, 13 months isn't that long, but you have gotten to see the development of this step process. You've already been an integral part of the county's ATP grant that brought in millions of dollars to our community. And you really just embody the spirit of local government in Isla Vista, which is that if the folks that live here are empowered to make change, we can do great things. So very proud of you, and we are very lucky to have had you on our team. And I hope that if you make it back here eventually, that you think of us because we can definitely, as has been shown, like use your talents in all aspects of the community services district. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Spencer. I appreciate it. Thank you.
And I would just like to wish you well in the future. Isla Vista is a very special place. So you've had an experience of really being empowered here and getting to see what you were capable of doing in that environment. And it'll probably be a little more difficult other places in the world, but I hope that you'll remember those lessons and really advocate for yourself and what a difference you can make if you're given the power to do that. And
So
that you'll
true.
take our values with you.
Thank you so much.
Public
Yes,
comments?
please.
Yeah, I just want to say I'm Hillary Blackerby, work at MTD, and I've been involved in the STEP grant and then the mobility plan process. And I've been just absolutely blown away at the work that Fiona's done and just the like instincts that she has for project management, for transportation planning, stuff that people go and like get all kinds of degrees for and stuff and still like couldn't do the things that she's managed to do. I'm truly, truly so impressed and super bummed she's leaving. But and I think this is part of Isla Vista culture too, but of just being willing to like be in meetings with, in theory, a bunch of people who are like, you know, have a lot of responsibility and they're kind of like, you know, muckety mucks, right? Higher ups, and just speaking truth to power and sticking to what's right for Isla Vista. It's not always easy. And it just seemed like it came naturally to her. So we're all really lucky to have spent time with you, and hopefully you come back for at least a ribbon cutting for something that comes from the mobility plan. So congratulations and thanks.
Thank you so much, Hillary.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right, well, so seeing as that will be the end of our public comment, director's comment, do I have a motion on this resolution?
I'll move to adopt the resolution.
Do I have a second?
I will second.
All right, so the motion by Brant, the second by Craig. Is there any public comment on this motion? All right, I see no public comment on this motion. We'll go to a vote. So all directors in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, please say no. All abstaining. Okay, so the motion passes 6-0-0-1.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, guys. I'll definitely miss working for IVCSD. It's been a really life-changing, memorable experience that I'll always be really proud of, and I'll definitely stay up to date with everything IVCSD does and everything that comes to fruition from the mobility plan. Lots of really exciting things happening that I won't forget about for sure.
Thank you. All right, so now we'll move on to item 4.2, the Santa Barbara MTD proposed service change.
I'll get the share screen going, and I got Hillary here, as you guys saw already. She's been here every year for this date, I think, to do this presentation for us. So I'll just tell me when to click.
Okay, is it okay if I stand over here?
Sure.
You can see a little better. All right, so good evening, directors and district staff. As I think you know, I'm Hillary Blackerby. I'm the planning and marketing manager with Santa Barbara MTD. Traditionally, every year we go out to the public in April. Well, we start much earlier in the year trying to figure out what our service needs are, what our workforce numbers look like, what our budget looks like, of what we're able to, what kind of service we're able to put out in the coming August. We generally make our service changes in mid-August, and right before sort of various schools come back into session. And so that's generally the cadence at which we do it. The pandemic was sort of special in the sense that with campus closures, with lockdowns, with things like that, service went away, service came back, and then last April, we had to make cuts across our service due to just a lack of bus operators. So we're sort of still in that world, and so I'll sort of give you a caveat about our levels of service in one of these first ones, but I'll go over what the proposed service changes are. Some of them involve Isla Vista, some don't, but I'll talk about all of them just in case anyone cares about the others, but you'll know what we're doing system-wide. So the service changes would generally go into effect August 14th of this year. This is just a broad overview, and I'll get into specifics of each one. Increasing frequency on line 28, which is our UCSB shuttle that goes from Camino Real down Stork and El Colegio to campus. Start of a new line 19X express service between Carpinteria and Santa Barbara City College. Start of, we've talked about this a few times at meetings, but we're calling the Wave, our microtransit service that would serve Goleta and parts of Isla Vista, including through this wall and across the park and in the Ivy Community Center lot. There would be a stop there. And then our lines 23 and 25, which are sort of our far western Goleta routes, making a change to connect them at the end to make it a little more useful for riders. So all of this, of course, is based on the caveat that we think in this moment, in mid-April, that we'll be able to bring all of these things into service in August. Now, if we don't keep hiring at the pace we need to, or a bunch of people decide to retire or leave, then we may have to do less than all of this. What I can guarantee is that we do not have the bandwidth to do more than this August, right? We're always looking at what we have to see if we can change, and we are, allowed to make mid-year changes. So it doesn't mean this is our only bite at the apple. Not until August of 2024 could we bring back more service, but this is what we're focused on now, knowing what the conditions are. Next slide. So line 28, As a reminder, this service has been in effect since about 2015. It was started in agreement with the university as part of the San Joaquin housing project. Instead of building a very, very, very expensive parking structure out there, the idea was, let's put that money, or what would have gone to that, into transit service to move people efficiently through Isla Vista. It was actually a rousing success before it was even before the housing was even built, because they started the line before that, and the demand has been significant. Before the pandemic, the headways, or how frequent bus was every 10 to 12 minutes. It paused and was suspended during lockdown when the campus closed, as were some of our city college routes, things like that. When campus reopened in fall of 2021, we brought some Line 28 service back, and currently the headways are just every 36 minutes. Sorry for the very specific times, but that's how we work in transit. So every 36 minutes. Obviously there's other service out here, but that was the most frequent service, and it's been at that level because of, again, the people were able to put out in buses to do it. We know there is extreme demand on this route. We use the 60-foot articulated buses on the Line 28. They fit a little over 100 people in a standing load. They are full consistently. We're still turning people away. So it's really, I call this sort of like our insatiable route, in that you really could throw everything at it and more people. I love that. That's how transit's supposed to be. So it's a great thing, but we know that the demand is there and we need to bring back some more service. So what we're looking to do is, for some portion of the day, increase that frequency to every 18 minutes. So it's sort of throwing another bus out there for a chunk of the day. My hope right now is that would be 8 hours of the day. I'd love to do more. The service runs from like 7 a.m. to midnight. So it's happening for most of the day. We think with our resources, we'll be able to do a good 8 hours of 18-minute service based on sort of demand levels, generally what we pay attention to. So this is our hope for the Line 28. Next slide. And I'll say, I mentioned, it's done in concert with university. They pay for the operation of this service. So new service. We haven't introduced new service since the Line 28 in 2015. So we're excited about both of these things, and I'll go into each one. So first is Line 19X. This, speaking of funding, is actually funded from 101 HOV project traffic mitigation funds. So all the mess going on the 101 south of here, as part of all of those projects, there always has to be money spent to get people out of their cars by themselves. So we think we're a pretty good way to do that. And so we worked with SBCAG to create this. We planned this about a little over 3 years ago, in fact, and we were going to make it happen, but then the campus was closed and City College enrollment has been slow to return. But we think that this August would be a good time to start it. So what is it? It's new peak express weekday service connecting Carpinteria, Santa Barbara's east side, and the City College campus. So it's, when I say peak, it truly is. There's 2 northbound trips in the morning, so from Carp in, 1 midday round trip, and then 2 southbound trips in the afternoon, evening. It'll operate year round, except City College spring and winter breaks, but it will run in the summer. I talked about how it was funded. And instead of starting on the 14th of August, we figured let's start it when fall semester at City College starts, which would be August 28th. So I'll show you the route here. A little hard to see on this, but it's the light lavender line. It starts in Carpinteria. This is a very expressy express route. So there's only 7 stops in each direction, which is great because we actually used to have an express route between Carpinteria and Santa Barbara, and it had so many stops that I wouldn't technically call it an express. And it was actually, it was the 21X. It was the 20, which is a local, which has even more stops, was beating the 21X to Carpinteria because the 21X was on the freeway more. And so it was backed up more. So what we ended up doing was taking all those service hours on the 21X, putting it into the 20 schedule, and that made the 20 very, very successful, even more ridership than the ridership of the two combined before we did that. We've had to pull back on line 20 service a bit because of the issue I keep bringing up, but this we think will be able to add some targeted service. I don't know if anyone's has any interest in Carpinteria, but basically there's 3 stops within Carpinteria, then it hops on the freeway, and we'll be able to use some of those new HOV lanes that are already in the sort of non-bottlenecked section of Carpinteria right now, off at Milpas, and then 2 stops along Milpas, down Gutierrez, and then over to 1 stop on Gutierrez, sort of technically kind of a downtown stop, Gutierrez and Laguna. So if you work or need to get downtown, you could take this and just go a few more blocks, and then over to City College. The return trip, essentially the same route, except you'll go back by Haley, so those are one-way streets. Again, onto Milpas and then back into Carpinteria. Go to the next slide. So these are the stops I just discussed, just outlined. The departure times, it would leave the sort of end of the line in Carpinteria at 7 a.m., 8 a.m., and 11:45 a.m., and then get to City College at the end of the line, 7:39, 8:39, and 12:19. And then the departures from City College are 12:40, 4:30, and 5:30. We did this, especially that midday trip, we thought was important because, well, 2 reasons. If students are using this, I think they will. We've been told they will. They've told us they're going to. We know that not everybody has class all day, right? And so if they've got morning classes, they can get there and then get out and head back home. Same for if their classes are only in the afternoon, they can do that. But there's also times for if you're working on campus and you have like a traditional 8 to 5, 9 to 5 or 8 to 5 schedule, that can work as well. And a lot of times for people who are thinking about commuting by bus, one of the things that holds them back is, because often this type of service is just AM and PM. If I need to get home midday, for some reason, I won't be able to. And so they just never take the bus, right? So hopefully we've built something in that keeps that from happening generally. Next slide. All right. So microtransit, another thing we've been talking about for over 3 years, but we think it's finally here. Microtransit is flexible, on-demand, curb-to-curb service between 2 points within a specified zone for a flat fare. We're going to operate it with these pretty vans. They're all electric, and rides be ordered by a smartphone app, or people can also call the transit center. When I talk about the span of service, there will be times when the transit center is not open, but the service is running. And so if you want service at one of those times the transit center is not open, you'd need to call in advance to book it in advance. We don't have sort of like an extra call center to go later. The operating funds, again, this is technically a pilot, a 1-year pilot for this. So be operating on a temporary basis for a year. We have state funds from the Low Carbon Transit Operations Program to try this out. The planned span of service, because we only had a certain amount, is 6 days a week, Tuesday through Sunday, 10 a.m. to 9 p.m. We had to pick those 6 most important days for something like this. And we thought that Sunday would be a pretty important day for groceries and getting around, as opposed to Monday. So how much does it cost? Regular one-way fare is $3. If you're 62 or over, or a person with disabilities who qualifies for a regular half fare, it's just $1.50. And if you take a microtransit trip, you've got 60 minutes to transfer for free to fixed route service, which we expect some people will do because it'll get them sort of that first last mile, get them to where they need to go, and then they can take the rest of our service. The ways to pay, there will be two ways. One, there will be a cash fare box on board if people need to pay cash. Otherwise, there'll be contactless payment. So tapping a contactless enabled debit or credit card, smartphone, Apple Pay, Google Pay, that kind of thing. So this would be the two ways to pay. Next slide. So where's it going to go? I think I presented on this again several years ago, but I'll walk you through what these zones actually are. I know it's hard to see on this small screen, but and then I'll sort of explain how it works. So this gray zone up in the top, the boundaries are on the east is Patterson Avenue. To the north, it's Cathedral Oaks. To the west, it's Los Carneros. And to the south, it's Cayriel and the freeway. So everything within there. And then the other gray zone down to the left a bit is south of the freeway. This is Los Carneros sort of snakes around. So it's Goleta City Hall. It's all that housing, Willow Springs, all the newer housing off of Los Carneros, the business park. There's a few breweries in these things. So that's the other zone. And then the other points that you see are other pickup or drop off points. So the Goleta train station, Santa Barbara Airport, 2 stops at the university. So the Ealings Hall Circle and the North Hall bus loop. And then out here, the El Colegio and Embarcadero Del Mar outbound bus stop. So the one on the mountainside of El Colegio, and then the Ivy Community Center. So if you are at one of those points or in one of those zones, and you want to go anywhere in one of those zones or to one of those points, you would, for example, open up the smartphone app, say, I'm at the Ivy Community Center. I want to go to the thing we hear the most, Trader Joe's. And so come and get me. It'll say, your ride will be there in 8 minutes, right? And so meanwhile, the driver's getting turn-by-turn directions that they're getting fed from the algorithm that's, going to pick you up, and then maybe someone else at El Colegio, and then head where you need to go. So in theory, right, it's a shared ride if everything's working efficiently. And so someone who gets picked up after you may get dropped off before you, but it's going to give the driver the most efficient route to get everyone where they need to go. Based on the modeling, unless it's super slammed and there's a bunch of calls for service all at once, we don't expect people to wait for really more than 15 minutes for a ride, which is great because it's a pretty compact area. A couple, wait for these seagulls to come in. A couple questions that we've had of, why doesn't it just cover all of Isla Vista? Or I've had other people say, why doesn't it just go to Camino Real Marketplace? Okay, so why don't we want it to go through the Stork and Hollister intersection? Have you been there? Okay. If our van had to reckon with that, like it would never get out, right? And so it takes so long. So it's like, stay away from that. If we covered all of Isla Vista, it would probably never get out of Isla Vista, right? Because people would go, hey, I'm at 65 DP. I want to go to, 67 Seville. And then it would just do that forever and ever. So trying to be efficient, concentrate those pickup points to get people where they need to and want to go. And yeah, so that's that. Next slide. Quickly, our line 23 and 25 out in Western Goleta, which some people may end up taking because the line 11 actually sometimes becomes the 23. So this is, to orient yourselves, this is the Hollister and Stork intersection. Camino Real Marketplace is here. And then the freeway is right here. The line 23 is our El Encanto Heights route that serves north of the freeway. This is the neighborhood around Dos Pueblos High School and just all throughout that neighborhood, big residential area there. The line 25 is our Elwood and Winchester Canyon route. So it sort of continues down the Hollister corridor, serves the Elwood neighborhood, and then hops over the freeway to the what's called Winchester Canyon neighborhood. Currently, at the end of the routes, which are both north of the freeway, they come so close to each other that they don't connect. We thought, that's silly. We should connect them so that we can give people what we call a one-seat ride. So if you're taking an outbound 23, it will always become an inbound 25, and vice versa. If you're taking an outbound 25, it'll always become an inbound 23. It is realistic to assume that someone getting on over here may want to go here as opposed to just here and then walk, because it's they're very close neighborhoods as the crow flies, but right now it involves transferring or walking in a decent distance. So next slide. So this is what it would be. It's very slight and not a lot of change, but essentially they would end up both terminating here around Kyriel and Winchester Canyon, where one would become the other in either direction, and still serves the same neighborhoods as they do now. This is it seems simple, and technically it is for the public. These two lines, if you go to the next slide, are actually all intertwined in our system with the line 6 and 11. So those are our two workhorse routes that go the Hollister, State and Hollister corridor, right? So the line 6 goes from the transit center all the way to Stork and Hollister down State and Hollister. The line 11 goes they have the same route until the end of Old Town, Bolita. Then the 11 branches off, goes to the airport, goes to UCSD, goes through Isla Vista, and then meets up at Stork and Hollister. When they get there, some of them become the 23 and the 25. So if, for example, you've ever been at the transit center and you see the head sign of the bus say 6-25 or 11-23, if you got on that 11, if you wanted, and you rode it all the way through the whole route, it would become an outbound 23, which has been really helpful because they used to be totally separate. And then you'd have to get off at like Rusty's Pizza and wait for the next one. So they will still be what we call interlined. They'll still be connected. And there's more 6 and 11 service than 23 and 25 service, but every inbound, so heading away from Goleta, every inbound 23 and 25 become either a 6 or 11, right? So if you're getting out of that neighborhood, you always be able to go further than just Stork and Hollister. Because this is all a big tangled knot and it had to be pulled apart and put back together, some schedule times are tweaked slightly. On the 23 and 25 in particular, no trips are lost across those two routes. The 6 and 11, very minor, like at certain time points, 1 minute here, 2 minutes here. So we'll put all of that out later in the summer. And if there's one of those things at the stops, that'll be changed. It'll be changed in the schedule guide, but really you won't feel a difference. But departure times from the transit center on the 6 and 11 won't change on either line. So those will all stay the same. And those kind of work on a clock face, 15, 30, 45. Yeah, next slide. On-time performance, we're always looking at this. We have the same thing that allows you to track the bus in our app, or Google Maps also allows us to look on the back end and see, was that trip on time, how often, which ones, was it early for some reason, was it late? And so we're always looking at that. Things are looking pretty okay. We may make minor adjustments to one little segment of the line 20, but again, one that nearly no one will feel except the metrics, right? Next slide. Two things. Oh, for some reason on your computer, it flipped my bus on its side. So it's interesting. This is why I should always put these in PDFs and not in PowerPoint. Coming this year, we've had our contactless tap to ride fare payment on 18 of our buses as part of a pilot for the past 1.5 years now. It's been really successful, but people are like, put it on all the buses. So we are going to, we're finalizing all the contracts and everything now to get installation on the whole fleet. So that'll get started soon and happen for the whole fleet sometime this year. And then what you can't really see on this is a 3-position bike rack on the bus. We got a Measure A grant to replace all of our bike racks on all of our buses with a 3-position rack instead of the 2-position, which we've been asked for many years. And this is my little baby. I was very excited that we were able to get the grant finally to do this. So a 50% increase in bike capacity on the buses. And we did some survey work in advance of applying for the grant to see how often people had gotten left at a stop without room for their bike. And it was like in the 70% of people who had brought their bike on the bus before, they had to make alternate plans, wait for the next bus or block their bike up. So we don't want that to happen. So hopefully this will address that issue. Next slide. So as we always do with this process, we have a survey online that's kind of an explainer. So if you go to sbmtd.gov/service changes, and everything is in English and in Spanish there, including the survey, it explains everything I just explained, probably more succinctly, and you can give your feedback on the survey and say, for example, the wave, I love it, I hate it, why don't you stop here, or what have you, and we take that in. That'll be running through the end of this month, and good to share with people who couldn't come to this or take the bus and have opinions about it. And so we always want to get their input before we make the final changes before we go to our board next month. So happy to take any questions on any of that.
Well, thank you for that presentation. That was very interesting to me personally, and I'm excited to hear about all these changes. Do any directors have questions off the bat? I'll ask a quick question. I'm pretty sure you just said this. The increase in bike storage, is that going to be on every bus? Okay, so it's a 50% increase to as many buses are currently in the fleet.
That's right. That's right. We have our 30-foot buses that used to be the sort of downtown and waterfront shuttle buses that are currently running on our line 3, like Oak Park route. They weren't originally outfitted with bike racks because they were kind of a hop on, hop off shuttle. We're working with the manufacturer of those buses to make sure we can do it correctly on those buses so that it's safe, that we know where to screw everything in, since they were built without that. And so those may be last, but anything that comes out here certainly would.
Amazing, that's great to hear.
Yeah.
And then let me see if I have any other useful questions, because I could just ask a bunch of excited questions.
I'll take those too, that's fine.
Yeah, well, yeah, I'll save my excitement for comment. Did anyone else have any questions they'd like to ask this time? All right, I see no question, or
Nope.
Go ahead.
Thank you for that precision, very informative. So one thing that I know you've shared in the past, when you've come to these meetings, you've always, and it's so funny too, that we're at this place. I can't contain my excitement for the wave. I'll just share my comments on how I'm excited, because you've heard that for years.
I know.
So my question is that I know that pre-pandemic ridership from UCSB, Santa Barbara City College, and basically the lines serving Isla Vista was one of the areas of the system that continue to see a lot of increases in ridership. And where would you say we're at compared to that now?
Good question. We bounced back really well, specifically on those lines combined. I don't really have a number, but generally system-wide and, across different routes, we've been at like 75–80% of pre-pandemic ridership. What's really fascinating as we've hit now sort of the year mark, so leading up to the year mark of making cuts to service, because of our shortage. Ridership, you think about ridership or service levels are less than pre-pandemic by a decent amount, but ridership on some of those is higher. And there was actually a month, maybe November, don't quote me on the month, but some month in the last 6 months where ridership on the 28 at 36-minute headways was higher than when there were faster headways, which again shows you how full those buses are. So it's out here is really bounced back. And of course it has to do with camps reopens. There's not really, as I understand it, less people out here. And so, you know, they're still taking the bus. So it's great, but also we'd like to put more service back because we know it would be used.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, I'm so excited about the 18-minute headways too. That's going to be huge. It's a big thing that I think a lot of us hear about how crowded it is. And so that will be really huge.
Mm-hmm. Thanks.
All right, so I don't see any more questions, so I'll go to public comment. If anyone in the public would like to share comments on what we've heard so far, please go ahead.
First of all, as an avid cyclist, thank you for increasing the bicycle passenger buses. And going along with Marcus's question, is there going to be racks in the front and the back of the bus, or just in the front?
Just the front.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's good enough still.
And what I'll say about the racks is I've noticed over the past several years, tires are getting fatter. And we do every summer, we work with what's now Move Santa Barbara County to do junior high bike camps. And we give them an opportunity during their week of bike camp to try, you know, to test out putting their bike on the front of the bus. And it used to be no problem, all those bikes would fit, but now we've got these super fat tires on a mountain bike or e-bikes, of course, as well. And so these new racks fit a fatter tire also, which is great.
So the other question I have, and this is with regard to dispensers, the wave, the short distance, are there specific pickup points, or is this door side pickup?
Good question. So at those exact points, there will be specific places within those zones. It's really anywhere curbside. So your house could be on, I don't know, Covington Way, just one of the streets, right? And I'll pick you up in front of your house. Anywhere that it's safe to do so, it'll stop there. What I didn't mention that I hope is obvious is these vans are ADA accessible and have a lift and ramp also. So it fits, if there's a wheelchair in place, a person using a wheelchair and 5 ambulatory passengers. If no wheelchair, it fits 7. And so when you book a ride on the app, it asks if you're using a wheelchair, and if you are, it sort of dedicates that space for you there.
I just have a question, and I might have missed this, so I apologize, but how many vans in total are there gonna be?
We have 3 of them. Generally 2 will be out at one time. There are sort of like the first hour of service and the last hour of service, and for a break in the middle of the day, it'll be 1 doing it. But we think those will be the lighter times anyway, so you probably won't notice. And what I'd say too about the Ivy Community Center spot, we talked a bit sort of the end of last year of making sure that there's sort of a spot we can get to that's kind of dedicated for that, so that, because heaven knows you don't want to pull over on the curb on the loop. So we'll continue to work together to get that dialed in so that people know exactly where it is. And especially at the pickup points, specific pickup points, we want to have some signage that if you stumble onto it, you'll know, the QR code and everything, you'll know that you could get picked up here and where it goes. So when the time comes, we'll definitely want your help getting the word out. We'll do sort of a softish launch, and then once it's really cranking, we'll want to push it out there.
All right, we'll go back to comments specifically, but I kind of have a discussion-y question, which is, so to be clear, this is the first place where these are the first locations where the wave's being piloted. And are you expecting that people will be so excited that they'll be demanding it in the rest of Santa Barbara?
Good question. So when we modeled this over 3 years ago, we actually had them model 3 locations. The second location that we've worked on, and I think will be second, because we actually got a state grant for 3 more of these vans, will be Carpinteria. And so that's kind of all of Carpinteria plus a little bit of county Santa Claus Lane area. They're pretty stoked about that. But you're first. And so we're going to learn all our lessons out here and then either move it to there, or hopefully if we find funding to keep this going, start that as well. But that's the plan. And then the third one is Santa Barbara, kind of around the waterfront area and some sort of different points around like the transit center, the funk zone, probably the mission, some points that we don't have direct service to right now on fixed route.
That's good to hear. I feel privileged that we're the first. And when I'm looking at the micro transit zone that's in the northbound area, I'm really excited to see. I think it goes right up to it crosses over that area with Goleta Library, which is one of our partners, and something that we've been thinking about a lot. So I'm really excited to see that connection as well. And that kind of goes beyond like the needs-based coverage of need to get groceries. I'm thinking about how this is going to increase some riders who maybe are more familiar with a rideshare type of app and bridge them into being newer customers of public transportation. So I'm just really excited for this particular new service, the Wave. I'm also really glad to see these other lines that are being redeveloped, the ingenuity to connect the downtown line into the 23 and the 25. That can make a whole world of difference when somebody's looking at jobs and seeing they do not have to rely on a car. So I'm very proud. Could you tell us when that meeting is, when people will be discussing or hearing about this again, the MTD?
Or board?
Yeah.
Yeah, May 9th, whatever that Tuesday is. May 9th, I'll be presenting sort of our findings from, we've been doing a bunch of these meetings, and thank you for hosting one. We didn't have to do our own. This makes a lot more sense. So yeah, May 9th, we go back to our board with recommendations. So we're in the next few weeks, crunch all the numbers from the survey, make sure we've sort of addressed everything, and then bring them our recommendations for that. And yeah, it's a great point about the library. And that zone, or those zones, are so packed full of points of interest. When you look at the map, it can kind of be like, it's a bunch of residential areas, but obviously those shopping centers are one thing, but there's a ton of parks and schools. Goleta Valley Community, junior high is there, Lake Los Carneros, like places that I know, like Stowe Grove Park, places that people in Isla Vista, like, why would you go? Even though it's so close, but probably never do. And so you can just hop on and go and enjoy some different nature than you're used to. So yeah, and the library, which is huge.
Does anyone else have any comments or questions they'd like to continue asking? Dr. Brandt.
My dentist is on Lancina, or across the Encino Royale.
Yeah.
The first year that I lived in Isla Vista, on a Friday night, I chipped my tooth. And so I needed an emergency dentist appointment to go over there. And I took the bus. I don't remember which line it was, but I got off the stop in Old Town at the corner of, I guess that's not Patterson, Fairview and Hollister. And then I walked across the overpass and then through that busy freeway off ramp to get over there.
With the chip tooth.
With the chip tooth.
Yeah.
I was on it. And so that's just one very small use case, but there are a lot of medical offices over there too.
There are neighborhood clinics, and yeah.
Absolutely. So this is just really huge. I can't thank you enough for all of your work put in on this to make this happen over multiple years. I'll share with my colleagues too. Definitely check out the vans as soon as they're available. These things are, number one, they're huge, and I can't emphasize enough, they're all electric. And so this is a really great way to make your lifestyle more sustainable and to get kind of the best of what the rideshare apps have to offer without all of the accessibility problems, labor practice problems, and lack of sustainability problems.
There you go. We actually will have the van out at Earth Day in Santa Barbara this weekend, so you can crawl all over it if you come visit us in the Green Car Show section.
All right, well, thank you very much for that report.
Thank you.
Let me look at the item. Yeah, I don't think we need to have any more formal direction on that, but thank you very much.
Yeah, and I'll leave the flyer that has the link to the QR code to the survey and everything over here, and I left some little MTD goodies for public or whoever wants them. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. I saw the van. I went inside. It's cool.
It's really pretty, I have to say.
Good night.
All right, so now let's move on to item 4.3, the Isla Vista Safe Establishment.
Okay, well,
Yay.
yeah, can you let me share screen, please? Advanced share settings. All participants. All right, everybody. So we did discuss IV Safe at the January board meeting, and the board had a lot of thoughts and opinions and different, concepts for how we can make this work. And me and Ross and Jamie's on the call, we met and we had different brainstormings of how we want to meet the goals of the board, while also, I guess we felt like there were different goals that were sometimes at ends with each other. So we had to try to figure out something that met the most preferences pretty much. What we landed with was this model for IV Safe. And so, the first thing is the goal. What the board really said loud and clear is like, we want a place where we can coordinate public safety, bring in more resources, stay in front of decision makers, and help. And we will be, driving the charge since we'd be convening the meeting. So another thing was our county supervisor had advised us that we should make it a place where we have public safety presentations requested from different agencies and use it as a forum to, call the sheriff for a presentation on X issue, for example. So that's what we put together as the goal. The budget's still the same for what we talked about before, which is, a meeting budget for food. Food at meetings. And the main part is the structure that we were figuring out. So what we landed on was to maintain it as a private meeting that as it existed, and then have a public component for IV Safe at the board meetings. So then let's say this meeting would be quarterly. We'd have a board meeting where the board would give input for what we'd want to happen to IV Safe, for what the discussion should look like, and maybe like a report out from the previous meeting. And then the public can come, and we would advertise that as the time for the public to come speak about public safety issues. And then the board would have 1 to 2 representatives to the group, and they would be, taking what was said as the board direction and speaking about it at the IV Safe meeting. We couldn't do the model of having it, public at the end of the meeting, because that just then invites the concept that this whole thing should be a public meeting. Like you couldn't just only do part of the meeting public, or else you do the whole thing public. And then we said, well, some of these stakeholders might not participate if it was a public meeting. So that's the balance that we were trying to get. So there'd be like in the board meeting, there'd be a public opportunity for debate and discussion and questions for what is happening, and there'll be a report out. But then the IV Safe meeting itself will not be. I mean, people would be invited if someone wanted to attend. If there were relevant groups from the public or interested parties, we'd invite them. But it wouldn't just be a Brown Act meeting essentially. So not a like exclusive meeting, but it's not a Brown Act meeting. I guess is when we're say public versus private. It's not a Brown Acted meeting. We would set up a frequency. We were thinking quarterly would be good to start. and to not have formal operating procedures. It's not a committee, it's a working group. And so no formal procedures besides that the chair runs the meeting. And that was advice from our legal team. We'd maintain the same, some membership, and we have a bunch of other membership groups that we discussed at our meeting. So we would maintain that invite list and invite people additionally as needed for the topic being discussed that day. And we're saying 1 to 2 board members is best for Brown Act compliance. I mean, 1 is like even better, 2 you can get away with. We just know that there might be, like Director Deschler might be the UCSD representative to this, and you don't want to add up too many board members in the group. For else it becomes public meeting. Staff time allocation for now, what staff would need to do for this is set up the meeting, send out the invites, order lunch, take minutes, and follow up anything that falls to CSD. Like if the IV Safe group says, oh, IVCSD should do X, we take it to the board, obviously, but if we were going to follow up on anything, we would do that. Others might have to follow up on their own parts too. And then this is just background from before. This is just the history part. So that's what we were able to come up with. Jamie, I don't know if you want to add in anything from what we discussed, but yeah, the idea is just to, maintain a lot of similarities, put in our own pieces to it, and make it our own over time too. We would, as it keeps convening, we would it would become more and more of IVCSD's model over the old model. But Jamie, I don't know if you want to add anything.
I think you mostly covered it. The only thing that I would add is we also discussed part of the reason keeping it a working group because the different organizations and attendees may have different goals and objectives of what they think is important. And the working group would be focusing on that rebranding of IV Safe and kind of coming up with a collective goal and purpose within the organization.
So yeah, that's the idea. I mean, it's not like the only thing that could happen, but when we listen to what everyone wanted out of this is what we were able to put together based on that, and it with compliance from all.
All right, thank you for that presentation. Do any directors have questions they'd like to ask? Dr. Crowley?
I guess just like one of my goals in I completely understand that like the meeting format just didn't work out. It's totally fine. But one of the things that I kind of wanted out of that was getting Isla Vista residents in touch directly with like people who are in charge of public safety. So is there a way that we could, I don't know, make that happen in a different way? Because I do think that's just like a different, I don't know, approach than just getting a report from the board.
Yeah, I mean, we can do is we can have the invite list be expanded to more Isla Vista resident-based organizations.
Yeah.
I think that's what we can do, like AS groups, I mean, IVRPD is there, we're there representing residents, but we can look at more groups that are embedded in IV that would be on the regular invite list. So we can do that. So we have some of the groups, like, for example, Public Safety Commission, Students Against Sexual Assault, we have on here. I know there's the drug safety, I'm not remembering the drug safety group, but there's also Conscious for Recovery. So we can expand this list of the additional participants that we talked about last time. So if you have any ideas. So that's the thing, it's like, it's not a private exclusive meeting. So like we can add people to the invite list.
Okay.
If people wanted to be on.
Cool. Dr. Schultz.
I know there was a lot of discussion yesterday about having people working like significantly over their amount of time. Is this like feasible in keeping people like not working 160% of the time?
Yeah, I mean, if we keep it to just a simple 4 times a year meeting, that should be okay. I mean, really at that point, you're just emailing everybody, we would hopefully set the times in advance. Once we set them, like we just know all of 2024's dates. We'll do that in November, send them out as like we're going to meet in January, March, June, and October, December. And so we would do that. And I guess the only time would be if there was, let's say IV Safe determined like, oh, we really think this issue is important, and we took it to the board, there was like a whole project associated with that, then yeah, that would be where the more time would come in. But organizing the meetings shouldn't be much. You know, you're just sending out an email reminders, you know, things like that, setting up the room, we can do that.
All right, do any other directors have questions? Okay, we'll go to public comment for questions and concerns. Anyone like to comment? Yes, please.
So I have a question, and that is stakeholders involved with IV Safe. I'm assuming that they're stakeholders from outside of the district. With that said, their understanding of Isla Vista issues, they're going to need the guidance from whoever the representative from the board and staff to kind of hold their hand through what Isla Vista issues are. Now, the one thing that I don't want to see happening, personal long-time resident basis, is I don't want to, I wouldn't like to see decisions made on paranoia about Isla Vista's behavior. It's just, you know, unwarranted. At the same time, I don't want to see this on the Isla Vista residents side turn into a cop bashing type of thing. The goal of this is to come up with safety solutions, make ourselves a safer community, more accountable and more respectful to each other. I think it starts with the stakeholders being kind of guided through Isla Vista. It's like, and granted, the stakeholders outside of the Isla Vista community. So, like I said, that, you know, that's just my only concern, and I wouldn't really call it a concern, it's just an observation of sorts. So I don't know if I'm off track on that, but if you could answer that, that would be, you know, I don't know.
I mean, I guess it would be up to whoever's chairing the meeting to engender a good atmosphere. I mean, there's nothing you can do to stop someone from saying something, but you want to build a good, you know, like our chair here, we have a good atmosphere here.
Yes,
Isla Vista residents, all of us here.
great.
Yeah.
Yes, please.
I came in a little bit tardy, as you can see, so I did miss the last discussion, or I caught the tail end of it. Were you talking about having, where the city council meeting is going to be chopped up into where there's going to be public and then private meetings where, I mean, I just was a little bit confused. Is this going to be, because having it public is part of, you know, freedom and, you know, the basis of what America and what, you know, freedom and liberty and the ability, you know, we the people to be able to, you know, maybe the people that aren't on the board, the people that aren't stakeholders, but just the regular citizens, public affairs, are they going to still be able to myself included, be able to attend each meeting? Or is it because if there's a food balance or a food, I saw there that there's, you know, because of that, there's going to be just private meetings where it's like a luncheon or whatever, and the public's not invited. I just was a little bit confused at the tail end there. Maybe I missed something.
Yeah, we're talking about setting up a working group on safety issues. That's not the board. It would be maybe 1 or 2 board members on it, but it would be many more organizations, and it wouldn't be a public meeting in the same way this is a public meeting. But it's not a board meeting at this point.
But it's still it's still part of the pot being leaked out. It's not going to be public. I mean, it's going to be feeding people. That's not, like, the public's not going to be allowed to come to the meetings that are going to be behind closed doors, eating and sharing and merrymaking and making decisions behind closed doors without the public knowing and eating the public's money. Basically,
no decisions will be made at this meeting, and it's not a public meeting in the sense this is a public meeting. So,
okay. So they're all going to be public, or just the one that you were saying, just going to have the 2 board members, and then it's just going to be a different sect of this, but it's going to be a private sect. Basically, is what you're saying.
it's a working group with a lot of other agencies.
So a private sect. And they're going to be taking money out of what everybody here is gonna be doing to, be private, and the public aren't gonna know what's going on in this private sector.
Be reported at our meetings, what's gonna happen. We set the agendas at our meetings.
But basically, it's gonna be another city council outside of the city council. It's gonna be just a law
No.
enforcement.
No, it's a convenient, oh, you don't.
Well, so there will be a time in which the same discussion items that happen in Ivy State will regularly come to this exact board meeting that you're at right now. So say Ivy Safe meets in October, then by the end of October, probably before Halloween, because it'll probably be about that kind of topic, we'll be having that same conversation here with everyone present, and we'll likely invite all those same people, hoping that they do attend, because we want them to hear that public comment. We want them to be able to hear what you have to say, what I have to say, anyone who's not in that separate working group. So there will be a time, they'll just have like a separate working time where they're like, okay, like what are the logistics of this? And then they'll come with a very established plan that we'll be able to nitpick or ask critical questions of in public here at these meetings.
Oh, so basically, it's gonna be like a drawing blueprint party? Like they're gonna be like coming up with something that they want to say and bring to the board and lay it out and then bring it to the public, and everybody's gonna get to say something during a public meeting, or it's gonna be behind closed doors? And I was just making sure that it's gonna be still for the public, because it's very important. I mean,
Yeah, so that's one of the functions will be like Ivy State could be devising a plan that then comes to us, but there will also be the same amount of response. Things that are heard here will, whoever we appoint from our board to be the Ivy State representative will be taking those same very concerns to that meeting and holding the same empathy and energy of the comments we hear here.
Just share, if I can just respond to one thing too. This meeting already exists. We are trying to make it more transparent. We have adopted this meeting from the district attorney.
you have, I'm sorry?
We have taken on this meeting from the former district attorney.
Okay.
This meeting has existed for about 7-8 years. What we are doing right now is trying to make it more transparent.
Trying to make it, well, that's a good thing. It's a very good thing. Transparency in government is important.
Thanks for sharing that clarification, Director Brandt. Are there any further questions from the public or comments from the public? All right, I see none. So we'll go to director's comments. Director Freeman.
And we're supposed to appoint somebody. I think I said this in the last meeting. I'm hoping that Spencer is willing to continue doing this. If Spencer's not willing to continue doing this, or we're supposed to choose 2 people, I would like to see Olivia do it. That's my comment.
So unfortunately, I will not be able to continue doing this,
And
which
I would
is
like to see
a
Olivia.
big bummer. I also think I would love to see Olivia do it, and I think too that it will be beneficial to have 2 directors on this body. And I know that sounds like that's as far up as we can go for just Brown Act safety, and I think that's a good thing that we're thinking about that. So at the last meeting of this, I was elected the chair, so I'll have the dubious distinction of being a 1 meeting chair. But just due to my new job, it's not something that I'll be able to continue. I love the work, and I think that we'll do great whether the chair is one of our board of directors, or even I think our staff could be chair. Really, chair is a facilitator, and I think that especially in that environment, you kind of need someone to facilitate so that everyone can have the space in their brain to like really think, because some of these conversations do get kind of intense. So I think that we'll figure that out. But I too would draft you or nominate you if you are willing, Dr. Grant.
I would definitely be willing. I think that, public safety as a whole is something I'm very passionate about. And it sounds like a way in which I can kind of work with some of those other public agencies to see, hopefully, some of the change that I would like to.
That's great to hear. I was equally thinking of you would be a strong representative of our community here, specifically as a director. Any other directors have comments you'd like to share? Any other directors eagerly interested in joining Olivia and being part of our voices? You're good.
Yeah. I'm very passionate about public safety. It's very important to me, and I think that IB is a perfect place to figure out some really creative solutions.
That's great to hear. I'm excited to hear that. Well, I'll just comment. I think both of you would be excellent leaders and excellent voices for us. So I'm excited to see that happen. Any other directors have comments or questions you'd like to have at this time?
I'd just like to comment that I think that you have a plan that I think is very workable and that can really help us dig in and hold some other agencies accountable and come up with some good plans that we can then share with the public and get input on. So I think it's a great plan.
Thank you.
Yeah, I would just really want to highlight one part of this proposal that is a huge step forward, which is the inclusion of these additional participants, groups that haven't been at the table in the past, but are nevertheless important Isla Vista service providers like the youth projects, the teen center, Associated Students, public safety commissions. I mean, these are the groups that we turn to whenever we try to solve a problem as a community and bringing people together. And they haven't been involved in this process. I know that at a previous meeting that Jonathan and I attended, we looked at the attendee list and we counted, and there were 25 law enforcement officers and only 2 residents of Isla Vista that were invited to this meeting. So really, this to me and this effort is just about finding balance so that we can create like a more inclusive version of public safety. Because I really appreciate what you shared, Henry, about how it's really about making sure that people from our community are involved in the efforts that are going on so that there's buy-in to these things. And I think that that's one area that has been a challenge for public safety in the past, but also one area where we can really expand what we think about when we say public safety. So I'm very supportive of the proposal and appreciate the creativity of staff to take all of the different comments we had last time, molded into one proposal.
The sun is like directly.
You're telling you into something.
So I'm reading the sentence in here. Do we need to, or should I be appointing members to this, or as in? Well, it's a working group, so it's not a real committee, so it probably shouldn't be appointed by me, but.
I think the board could appoint it.
Okay.
Just, yeah, there's the 1 through 5 recommendations, so you could just go through each one of those and do them, or as one motion. I think one thing you all should determine though is like who do you want to be the chair, or if you want the working group to just select its own chair from its membership. Then you run the risk of like IVCSD not having the chair, but you know, it also, so you could just pick it now.
What do we think about the facilitator idea? I mean, I know that's all the meetings that many of us attended to create the district. We had a facilitator, and I thought that was really helpful because we all are going to want to have things to say. And as Marcos will tell you, like when you got to direct traffic and figure out what you want to say, it's a lot.
Yeah, I would definitely support for a meeting like this. It's going to have a lot of sensitive issues. A facilitator to be slightly separate from the participation. I also would support that we have 2 directors be a part of the working group, more than just one, just for logistics, but also for the empowerment of the district, so people's voices can feel amplified. And also the networking capacity of having 2 directors, that's 4 ears out in the community hearing things opposed to just 2 ears. So I support that we have 2. I support the facilitator idea. When I look at these recommendations, I definitely support all 5 of these recommendations. So if there's not any further comment on those, I'll hear a motion.
What do you think about the idea? Do you think that's something that's accomplishable?
Like this, like we should hire someone sort of thing, or
Either that, or honestly, I mean, I think you could do it too.
yeah, I mean, I can do it and not, you know, you guys can be the policy people and I'll just run the meeting. I have nothing, no stake, you know, whatever you all want to do.
Yeah. I trust you to do it because I trust your judgment. I also think that there's great people from the outside, but yeah.
Great, I can do it. And then, yeah, I know all these people who are part of this group already, so I've got all this.
Yeah. The other aspect of like a chair's duties too, like outside of running a meeting is setting the agenda. And we've already determined that the board of directors of CSD is going to set the agenda. So I feel like that kind of is a way to describe how it's gonna change.
When I already take direction from the board, so if anything, it's safest that you do it as me, because I'm always accountable to the board regardless of my role as chair of this group or not, so.
Yeah, no, I love that idea of having you as like chair slash facilitator, trying to run a meeting of a bunch of law enforcement organizations sounds bad.
I can do it, don't worry.
All right, is there a motion on this item?
I'll make that motion and include that we appoint directors Craig and Schultz to be our representatives.
Okay, do I have a second? for this motion? All right, so the motion by Topliff, the second by Freeman. Is there any public comment on this motion? Yes, please.
Excellent motion. I think that Directors Craig and Schultz are fantastic for this. They do represent the large demographic of the community, and but the thing that I say is that all voices need to be heard. That's the most important thing, and that's the main thing to keep in mind on this. And I highly commend that you will be stepping into that role. I thank you for that.
All right, Director Brandt.
I have one question too. I don't know if it's been something that's been done in the past. I don't think we need to amend the motion, but I would like to see the public defender's office included as a stakeholder.
Yeah, well, I don't know why it's not on this list, but they will be on the list.
You know, I don't either, considering that the list is so full of public safety partners. It's weird that they were excluded in the previous iteration.
Right.
Please.
I do have, as far as, because I'm just, I'm just getting started, listening to everybody, and it's been a while since I've participated in politics. However, I'm just trying to scramble it in my brain, like public safety, it's for public safety. I myself don't feel unsafe. I don't know about anybody else, but I sort of feel unsafe just for the fact that my significant other, and I've mentioned before, his name is Justin Christopher Adams. He was assaulted in People's Park, and he's still sitting in jail. And we've got, as far as the public defenders, the DA, nobody knew. I walked into the courtrooms. I've been on Zoom. I've seen them. I went to the old Figueroa building. I don't know if anybody knows this, but any flag with the gold fringe on it, it's not just pretty. It's not just for looks. It's not just a little bit more decorated flag. It means it's owned by the Catholic Church. Everything in America has symbolism. And backing the judges in our courtroom was the church. And there's a separation between church and state.
Excuse me, but do you have any comments on the motion though?
Well, I was just talking about public safety.
Okay, well, but
And I'm sorry, I guess that I was going down on that trail, and
do you have any comments on the motion to set up this meeting, have it be funded in this way with support, and have 2 directors from our board?
no, not from your board. It seems as though you all are decent people, so thank you.
Okay.
No comment on that, but I had to make a voice, it had to be said. Maybe when we get a little bit further into the meeting, I'll be able to speak more upon DA and just the public defender's office and whatnot, what's going on.
Thank you for that. All right, so after hearing the public comment and that motion, all directors who are in favor of this motion, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, please say no. All right, this motion passes 6-0-0-1. All right, so now we'll move on to our 4th item, community spaces budget update.
Okay, let me pull up my. So our finance committee met on 1 week ago, and we looked at the Ivy Beautiful and the community spaces budget, essentially what was discussed at the board meeting. So here's the community spaces budget that we were looking at. it would result in a cost of $285,000. The current cost is $256,000, so not a huge bump, but a bump. The main cost, the only new cost would be a potential new reservations coordinator, someone who would take on all of the incoming requests and questions and work with the public to ensure that they have their reservation at the community center, community room, or the upstairs conference room that we've also taken on scheduling for. We kept everything else the same, the program cost, the grant writing budget in here, we're probably moving that to somewhere else anyway. So there'll be a cost that's removed from this budget and moved somewhere else based on our discussion at the retreat tomorrow, probably. So it's still in there right now based on what we last discussed, but this is new. So yeah, that's the new cost is a total of $38,000 for the new coordinator, and that would be a part-time regular position who would be paid about $25 an hour. These are estimations, so we're still just estimating what the budget could look like before we do all this. They'd get the part-time health insurance cost of about $8,000. And so yeah, that's the idea from the finance committee. We didn't make any other changes to the rest of the budget, just this position. And as you saw yesterday, that's the main driver of Maya's time use. It's 50% of her time is used on the reservations part of it, of like people submitting questions, asking to use the space, getting them their key code, making sure they have access, all that. So I don't know if our finance committee has anything else to add.
Not really.
Okay, do any directors have questions?
What's our current space utilization percentage? I think is a number that was calculated by.
It was calculated and it was in one of Maya's presentations. I can go get that. What's it?
Was it like a third?
I mean, it's a huge amount of the time. I like, is it,
I'm sorry, I mean to be clear, I mean like the amount of hours
Of
that
the
are
day.
being used by the building, in the building, divided by the number of hours that exist.
In the
Not
day.
like by people.
well, see, we're actually trying to say, like, do we want to divide it by 24 hours? Because very little use happens,
Yeah.
after 10 p.m. until
Was it
about 8
big?
a.m.
Was it a number that was like a really big number, really small?
It was
number?
very large.
Very
Yeah,
large,
it's
okay.
pretty large. I mean, we're not at 100% yet especially for the waking hours, like the 8 a.m. to, let's say 10 a.m. We're not at 100% yet, but we're very close to there. Like this weekend, we're booked the entire weekend, for example. Yeah, Friday to Sunday. I was trying to get a reservation for an event. I wasn't able
Oh,
to.
that does not include the upstairs conference room, which we're adding as a.
We just got that.
Okay,
Yeah,
yeah.
so that's right now it's just used as like work area for the clinic staff. They like kind of have their lunch there, and some counseling groups from UCSD have their group therapy there. But besides that, that's all that's happening there right now.
Okay, do any other directors have questions?
Dr. Brand. So my only feedback after, we all looked at this as budget committee, and then yesterday we saw the presentation about staff utilization, which just really gives me pause. And so I'm wondering, like we have the proposal here for a half-time assistant sort of role. Hasn't been considered to bump that up to full-time. Is that something that Maya thinks would be beneficial?
I don't know. We haven't talked about it. She did recommend it originally as a part-time role. But if it was full-time, you would be able to. There's not enough work for a full-time position yet. So it is only like 20 hours of work of 20 hours of work per week anyways. That could grow in the future, but I don't know how much more it would grow. So I guess maybe it would be something like a mid-year check-in. We can look at it, but I don't think like right now we're thinking there's 40 hours of work needed for reservations yet.
Gotcha. Yeah, well, it's definitely something we'll consider to monitor.
Yeah. All right, are there any other questions from board members? All right, I see no questions. So I'll go to public comment. Is there any public comment on this item or questions from the public on this item? All right, I see no public comment. So I'll go back to the board. Do any directors have commentary along with their questions on this item?
Yes. So we have two ways of going about the utilization issue. One way is to hire more people, which of course brings on ongoing potentially increasing cost. And one way is to reduce the workload on existing people. I particularly in this area, I generally lean to the second. But if Maya's already using 50% of her time on this particular task, and we're intending to increase the amount of places that we're going to be providing, like they're going to have to be really doing reservations for, and I honestly bet that, like from the description that Maya was having, that because she's working overutilized, that if there were like more slack, that the public would benefit even more on this particular area. I'm actually bringing in more people for this.
Yeah, I mean, I'll respond and say, like, this is the number one way we interact with the community.
Yeah.
Like almost everybody uses this service pretty much. And so you want to have a good customer service aspect of it. And so, yeah, Maya does 50% of her time on reservations, but then that means like some other parts of her job don't get as much time because you need to do a good job here, or else we would get like it would come to the board eventually, right? Like, you know, people would be upset if they weren't getting their reservations and schedules. So yeah, it's like the number one way the public interacts with IVCSD right now.
And I'm thinking that, you know, as Maya has more time to focus on the like strategy, that a more efficient system for reservation will kind of like appear with two minds coming together on this. And so, yeah, I'm definitely in support of expanding this. Any other directors have comments they'd like to share? Yeah, so do we need to?
No action. It's just, you know, it's a snowball effect for the budget. We just, you know, little by little.
Got you.
Taking the temperature.
Yeah, taking exactly.
Perfect. Okay, well, now let's move on to item 5, our public works budget update.
Okay, let me pull that one out. So there's not a lot of changes here. We're keeping the budget mostly the same. It's actually mainly an internal restructure that we're going to do, which is converting one of the positions to a coordinator, higher level intern essentially. But we weren't thinking of adding any costs, if any costs, like it might be a small amount just to keep the same number of crew hours, but that is a really, like, it's 10 hours a week for 40 weeks. So it's not a lot of extra time, but the idea was not like a new full regular employee position for this one. So it wouldn't be a benefited role. It would be upgrading one of the intern level roles to a higher level to help with day-to-day task organization, because we do a lot of scouting. We do a lot of, we found the graffiti, we're going to report back to the office and get it clean. So it's helping Jenna with that, day-to-day grind of, who's sending out who to where and who's, you got your tools ready. And so it wouldn't be a major change in the budget. It's keeping the budget mostly the same. The 68,000 that we had for extra help, we had factored, those people are getting paid right now $17 an hour. So it's 4,000 work hours that we have. So we're hoping to keep the same number of work hours, just have an additional intern level position to help, another leadership role for one of the current employees possibly to get promoted into. So not a change, no change. I mean, I think it says a 0.76% change possibly in the budget. We don't need more equipment. We don't need anything else. I mean, the equipment budget as it is good. We might want a little more money for advertising because it has a small, $2,000 for advertising right now, but that would be the only, we're looking at that as a whole, the whole social media and outreach plan anyways. So yeah.
Right, Director Chopper.
And I'll just add that we have vastly underspent our budget so far this year. So we haven't really gotten to our resting state on this program yet.
Yeah.
So we still have quite a bit to grow within our existing budget.
Exactly.
And just as well, that's largely just because people were hired, not when the fiscal year started, but once the program got started and once we hired a coordinator.
Yeah, Jenna got hired 1 month in, coordinator, like the work crew got hired 3 months in, and then we just hired for half the crew essentially in the last month. So
Got you. All right, well, I think that's enough information then for this item. Now we can move on to item 4.6, the 23-24 economic adjustment for salaries and wages.
Okay, so no action to be taken today. Just want to make sure to clarify that. I mean, the action is a more of a direction for the finance committee, not necessarily changing the wages today, but the finance committee needs to know what the board wants so that we can plan the budget properly. So last year, we adopted a policy for our employee pay and evaluation. And this paragraph here was the paragraph in the policy regarding economic adjustments. And what it says is we will look at the March to March CPI for the LA area, and we'll look at that number. And if we make adjustments, the adjustments only happen on July 1st. So that's, we can budget for them. The board also reserves the right to not adjust pay and benefits on an annual basis because of, whatever other factors are outlined in the policy, which are listed elsewhere in the policy. But so we are providing the information to the board, which is what the March to March CPI was for LA, Riverside, Orange County. It was almost half this time, 3.7%. Last year was 7.5%. So major change. Some information for you, IVCSD salaries and benefits. So this is only on salaries and wages, but salaries, wages, and benefits are in a total 45% of our budget right now. Our growth averages 12% a year. Current projections are 15% growth. Like we talked about yesterday, that might not last forever. The cost to the district is, if we did the 3.7% adjustment to all wages, that includes the temporary workers and the permanent staff, that would cost us $23,000. And then if you apply the labor burden essentially to it, like the increased retirement cost, because that's a percentage of the wage, and then Social Security, it becomes around $32,000 as a new annual cost if you apply this. So, and that doesn't count the merit increases people may or may not get. But the math I did is essentially everyone getting their merit increase, the COLA happening, and then subtracting the COLA from the merit increase to know what that, little increment is. That's only COLA for next year. So it's 23,000 extra in wages. But yeah, I guess what we need from the board is direction. If this number is good, 3.7%, if it's acceptable to use in planning purposes. And then in June, when we adopt the budget, we'll also adopt the new wage schedule based on what the finance committee worked out.
All right, do any directors have questions at this time?
Just to clarify, it's 4.3%.
It's 3.7.
3.7 is the CPI, but it says the recommendation is to approve 4.
Oh, that's an error. My bad. The BLS website was down for a week, and my memory said 4.3, but it was actually 3.7. So I just switched up the numbers. It finally opened up again yesterday. So there was no news article that mentioned this number in all of LA.
Okay, are there any other questions from directors? See none, so I'll go to public comment. Are there any questions or comments from the public on this item?
Is there going to be a tangible copy of this information? I am technologically disadvantaged at the moment. I'm kind of a stickler for tangible stuff.
We can print you one.
Cool. Appreciate it.
All right. Yeah, so these changes won't be happening immediately. There'll still be like budgetary and finance committee will go over
You know
the.
where we are.
Yeah, we'll make the final decision in June with the budget, but this is just so that the committee can use this number to plan.
Got you. Okay.
Or any number. The board can pick any number technically. You could pick 0, you can pick 100, you can pick any number, but this is the number we use to base.
All right, well, I'll go back to the board for comments and discussion on the item. Do any directors want to start? Have comments they want to share?
I would like to say that I'm in favor of using this COLA for the next year's wages.
With Carrie, I also think it's a good idea, continue paying them.
Director Grant,
This is a no-brainer. Let's do it.
Director
This
Freeman.
number is literally half what I thought it was going to be, so.
Jay's happy.
It's half from last year exactly. So almost.
It's hard to even believe.
Yeah.
All right.
I mean, yeah, sounds good.
Okay, yeah, I'll continue with my director's president that I support this idea and yeah, hope to see the increase for the COLA. All right, so now we will move on to our final discussion item, 4.7, the appointment of real property negotiators for 881-970-976 Embarcadero Del Mar. Director Grant.
Due to my employment with the County of Santa Barbara, I'll be recusing myself from this item.
All right.
Watch the cord.
You're gonna come back, Bill?
I'll be
Or
back.
you?
Hang on.
So we'll find you out there.
I'll text Sean.
Yeah. So what we're doing here, well, Spencer was one of our labor negotiators. So because of his job, we have to switch him out essentially. And we have a new board president, Marcos. And so things are going to start ramping up. We actually got a request for a meeting now on our negotiations. So we do want to be ready with a new negotiator on our side. So right now it's myself, Carrie's another negotiator, Ross, our legal counsel, and then Bob Geis, our former board member, consultant now, since he was involved with this project for a long time. He's still one of our labor negotiators. And so now we're recommending we add our board president as another labor negotiator for us. Oh, not labor negotiator, real property negotiator. Sorry, I'm another board labor negotiator. Sorry.
All right, do any directors have questions they want to ask? Director Freeman.
Bob's actually like active. He's like helping with this stuff.
I mean, and he's helping a little bit, like, you know, in October when we sent our latest version of the letter, he helped look
Okay.
over it and
This
give
is
his
so exciting.
advice. Yeah. He's advising us.
I guess, so yeah, I'm definitely interested and want to do this. I do want to know about like what kind of homework I should probably be doing to be like a useful negotiator, a useful party in the conversation. Because even some of what we've discussed as a board before, sometimes I feel like I don't have all the information or I'm not caught up to speed with everything that happens. So I just want to like be clear of like, how do I catch up and be a useful negotiator with us?
We'll probably have a negotiator team meeting before whenever our negotiating meeting is to get caught up. And there isn't a lot to catch up on. I mean, we have like several letters we've written, and I think maybe just reading the letters we've actually submitted over the years is the easiest way to get caught up of like the story of, you know, we've been at different positions over the years. So I can share those with you. And we've done our own, some of our own analysis of the costs around the properties. So, you know, we'd have that. The board we commissioned a study about a year or 2 years ago on the conditions of the building. So we have that report as well. And so that you could get even more technical. There's like redevelopment agency reports about the purchases of the buildings from like 15 years ago. Those are, I think, optional, but there's an endless list of things to learn about. But, you know, the main role is and we have Ross on the team, and he's a real expert on these things. So he's going to be helping us a lot with the technical parts of the negotiation and or other people in his firm. And so, you know, our role is to make sure that the district is getting the best deal and getting its interests represented. And, you know, we have a legal counsel to help us with the, you know, technical stuff.
Perfect. Okay.
So I don't actually want to do it, and I know you want to do it, but I would still feel remiss if I did not say that I have the background of having been in all the previous meetings of this, as well as having dug through ridiculous numbers of documents before the district was even constructed, with the like history of this building. It was actually a point before the county bought this building that I was thinking of buying this building when I was actually really successful at this particular moment. I've done a number of other negotiations in the past for other things. And I have no issue playing hardball with the county. So it is something where I could see, like, if it were not the fact that I don't actually really want to do it, I would be like, maybe Jay should do it. But if you want to do it, and I don't really want to do it, but I still feel remiss if I didn't say that out loud.
We can have 3 board members as long as, yeah, you could have 3 board members.
So if you find that useful, I'm willing to do it.
I genuinely do think it would be useful to have that information, whether that comes up when we do discuss this in like a closed session moment and we like anchor down and get into some of those details, or if you were one of the negotiators with us, I think that would also be beneficial because I do learn a lot from your historical knowledge frequently, almost every time we're in the same room together. So I think that would be helpful. Yeah, I don't know. I don't think that would hurt our strategy at all to have more directors present. I think that just like with our other discussions, like also just gathers more information from the community.
Would be good to have more expertise.
Do any other directors have questions they want to clarify? Do any members of the public have comments or questions on this item? Okay. So I'll go back to the board for commentary. If there's any commentary on this item to appoint real property negotiators.
I'll just say that I'm happy to continue.
That's good to hear. Okay. All right, I don't see any commentary on this, so I will appoint myself.
We need a motion for this.
We need a motion
Yeah,
for
this one
this.
we need a motion.
Okay. All right, is there a motion for this item?
I'll make a motion to appoint you and Jay.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that.
Yes.
This is the kind of thing where we're allowed to vote for it.
Yeah, you're not getting paid for this.
I'll second that.
All right, so we have the motion by Craig and the second by Scholes. Is there any public comment on this motion? All right, I see no public comment. So I'll go to a vote. All those in favor of this motion, please say aye. Aye. All opposed, please say no. All right, so this motion passes 5-0-0-2.
Spencer abstaining.
Yeah, he had to recuse.
Who made the motions there?
Director Craig.
All right.
All right, I'll go grab.
I'll text them. No.
Outside.
Just sitting on the.
Had to replace your 2
Sad.
Thank you, Sophie. What was your name, Zeller?
All right, so now we'll move on to our 5th section, reports. Item 5.1, reports from members of the board. Any members of the board have reports they'd like to share? Director Brown.
Well, I didn't want the occasion to pass without talking about the tragedy, the tragic death that happened during Deltopia. The last time that we were sitting here, we didn't know for sure the circumstances. We had heard maybe something had happened, but seeing the details that came out after our board meeting are just heartbreaking. It's really difficult for me to hear from the brother of the victim and just imagine my own little brothers who are both the same age and how this really could have happened to them. It could happen to anyone because the reality is that there is this poison in our drug supply that is really hurting people and making it really dangerous out there. And just as a action step for this and what I hope we can do, I'd like to ask that we have an item on our agenda to talk about fentanyl and tranquilizer in drugs and what the IVCSD can do for harm reduction in the future. I'm going to be attending a meeting with the Gauchos for Recovery in this room on Thursday and would invite others to join as well. It's with property owners to talk about Narcan from that perspective. So it's not really a planning meeting or anything, but I just want to be present and, hear about the Narcan effort that exists and acknowledge what was done during Deltopia. 85 doses were out there. I think that maybe if we had 850 doses out there, we could have prevented this. Yeah, that's my report.
Could you repeat when that meeting is that you're attending?
That is going to be this Thursday at, is it 5 p.m. or 6 p.m.? Sorry. It's this. Sorry, my computer like shut off working. So no, it's good. You can move on. I'll jump in and tell you when I find it.
Perfect. Do any other directors have reports they'd like to share?
I'll just mention that I attended the Isla Vista Recreation and Park District meeting recently, and they were very complimentary to us about our efforts at the Spring Festival. And we're happy to have been able to partner with us to the extent that they were.
Yes, and that meeting is this Thursday from 5 p.m. to 6 p.m. right here in the community room.
Is that the 27th or?
That is the 27th, yes.
Thank you.
All right, thank you for the information. I want to share as chair that me and Director Topliff got to meet with a staffer from Senator Monique Lamone's office a couple of last Tuesday. We got to discuss kind of what she wanted to hear, what our ambitions for Isla Vista were at large, and we kind of had a mouthful to cover what's actually happening in the current moment in the last 12 months without that are all projects that will continue in the next 12 months, more than likely. And so it was really engaging to hear from these folks and know that we're being watched from the different higher leaders or more well-known leaders in our community. But it felt good to be reached out to and heard from. Yeah, I attended just as a guest, as a fly on the wall, the finance budget town hall, and I was very impressed that we had such high attendees. We needed extra chairs from the community room, the community center. So that was great to see. And it wasn't, just about the food. I think that folks were drawn in by the gamification and the interest in what we actually spend our funds on, as well as the diversity of programs that we actually employ here. So it was a really great moment and just exciting to see community in action there. Yeah, so that concludes my report. If no one else has reports, we'll move on to the next section, 5.2, reports from standing and ad hoc committees. So I'll start us off. I reached out to all of you about interest in the parking committee that will meet regularly, and we had discussed previously how that format will work. And I heard from Jonathan, our legal counsel, that 2 members will keep us within the safe practice of the Brown Act, but would also be a good conduit for what's going on. So in that regard, I'm going to appoint myself and Director Freeman to be my partner on the parking committee to go in and have the regular meetings, but also have the more segregated meetings with the partners. Yeah. Are there any other reports from standing and ad hoc committees? All right. Here are no other reports, so I'll go to our report from District Council.
Thank you. Nothing to report tonight.
Okay, thank you. Now we'll go to our report from our General Manager.
All right, so reports. Keep losing my tabs today. So I'm gonna report on some things for Sydney real quick. So we had the budget town hall. It was very successful. Lots of people were in this room. We thought that the new time and the food were very critical to help get people here. And we got 110 survey responses to our budget survey. So that's good. We keep growing that number back to what it used to be before COVID. So that's great. We used to be at over 100, we went down to like 20. Now we're back up to 100 or so. They're going to be working on a report summarizing the budget survey to bring to the board in May. The STEP workshop number 3, this is a big deal, is gonna be on May 24th from 6 to 8 p.m. That's gonna be, there'll be more information coming out soon, but that's gonna be the time where we have lists of projects and ideas, and the community gets to engage with those ideas and prioritize them or reject them or add new ideas. So that's gonna be an important milestone. It's like the milestone for the STEP grant process. We were at Earth Day, Ivy Earth Day on Saturday. We had 2 tables there. And so we were giving out brochures, and we were helping people take home their own compost. And then right now, Sydney's main focuses are the STEP Town Hall, helping with move out. There's an upcoming another market event at the community center, and she's working to put together the new project manager for community engagement job description, so we can bring it, keep that process moving. Compost Collective, where our ad hoc committee is meeting on Thursday at the office to start working on, planning out the future of the program and how that's going to go. Ivy Beautiful, I don't have a specific update besides, what we talked about yesterday. We're trying to work through the storage issues, so we're working on that. You might have seen it on your way in. The bikes were out in front of the community center, but what they had done is they got the staff trained on the bikes. So now all our crew, the new crew, are trained on using our bikes. Interpersonal violence investigator, I'm meeting for the UCPD chief for coffee in about 2 weeks when he gets back from vacation to discuss the next steps on implementing that position. They're interested. They just want to make sure we're interested. Generally, the board seemed interested, but we still have to go through our processes of approving that budget and approving that contract, but I told them that. One thing for the mediation program that we're developing is a subleaser contract template for people to use. So it'll be just one of those other like off the shelf kind of products that's on our website. So if anybody, with the summer coming up, if anybody's getting a subleaser, this subleaser contract will help mitigate conflicts between a resident and their subleaser. That would have been good for me. I would have enjoyed that. The parking study is moving ahead. We don't have appointments from UCSB or the county yet to be on our project steering committee. We have our board ones now, but they're going to do test data collection this week. So Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, we'll be testing out the data collection. So it's like a dry run, essentially. They're going to be coming up in May to meet with us in person, and hopefully the project committee, once it's appointed, and then we'll really get going. But they're just going to come see how it's like, and that's exciting. Last up, I've been working with Jordan on the library grant. So we've split up the work on that, on who's going to do which sections, and we hope to have it done next week so that the board can look at it at the first May meeting, and then we can move that process forward. What else is happening? And now we have the retreat. Thanks everybody for participating yesterday, and we'll be working on the follow-up items on that. So nothing else on my report.
All right. Thank you for that report. Now we'll move on to item 6, future meeting dates and future agenda items. So as we discussed yesterday, we wanted to kind of leave this time a little bit more clearly open that directors would like to request agenda items. They will not necessarily be put on the very next agenda, but they will be added to the list that we'll be building of future agenda items. Our next regular meeting will be Tuesday, May 9th, 2023 at 6 p.m. on Zoom and at the community room 970 Embarcadero Del Mar. Do any directors wish to specifically add items to this list?
Yeah, I just mentioned an item about fentanyl and xylazine and harm reduction.
Perfect.
And I'll add that I have been in touch with Jonathan, our legal counsel, about this, so we'll bring something forward when we have something to bring forward.
All right. Thank you very much, everyone. I will now move to adjourn. Is there a motion to adjourn? Moved. Second by Craig. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, please say no. All right, we are adjourned. Thank you, everyone.